Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Writer's Hive. Today, we are going to be discussing how to make the most of your time at your desk writing. Today, I really wanted to dive deep into how to make the most of the time that you have carved out for your writing. Talk about ways and strategies to maximize the time that we are writing to make us as effective as possible. Everybody has something different that works for them, so we're just going to be going over what works for us. Some tips and tricks that we've learned along the way. And hopefully you guys can comment down below with one as well, and we can all learn from each other. So Katlyn, do you want to talk about what works for you and your process first?
Absolutely. So I find the best writing time for myself is when I am distraction free and also immersed in my story. So in terms of distractions, I try to limit the amount of social media that I consume while I'm in a specific session. With a family and not a lot of time during the week, I find that I really only have a certain amount of time. And if I don't do the things I need to do, I don't get them done. And that's very frustrating. So I sort of throughout the years created a process for myself. I know we discussed in an earlier episode about music, so I tend to use music to immerse myself in the story right away. I always have a playlist ready or some sort of inspirational music, and then I sit down. I usually prefer to use a timer. I have found throughout the years that when I don't use a timer, I'm not as focused. So I know, okay, I have 20 minutes. I need to get as much done as possible, or 25 minutes, or even longer ones as well. When I don't have a timer, I sort of lollygag, and without a better word to use, and I'll, veer off the story a little bit. So timers work for me, music, closing my door, sort of cutting out life in general and social media to get as much done as I can.
And you also are a morning writer, so you've also found a time that works best for you, right?
Yeah, so I started this year, or this probably a month now. I've been working from 4 to 7 in the morning, which people think is ludicrous, my husband included. But it's really the only time. I have tried working at night, and it's not my most creative time. In my previous career, I used to have to be up very early and ready to go. So that has sort of been ingrained in my process. And having 3 hours in the morning versus 2, which I used to do from 5 to 7, has totally changed the way that I can maximize my time. Of course, I go to bed early and I sort of lose out on that part of my day, but I only do it Monday through Friday as well, typical work week, and then reserve the weekends for family.
How about you, Amber? Have you found anything that works best for you to maximize your time at the desk?
Yeah, so I agree with the thought of having a timer. Just having that time clicking and you know how much time you have left. Sometimes I'll lose myself in the writing and just be surprised when the timer goes off. And other times I'm watching it like, how much longer? How much longer? But as long as it's there, I know like this is dedicated time for working on the book. Me and Julie together have done like experimenting with different times of like sprints. And I find the one that works best for me is like a 45-minute sprint, because the first 15 minutes I'm usually, especially like if it's the first sprint, I'm getting back in touch with the story and kind of like slowly getting back into it. And then that last 30 minutes is usually when I just like go hardcore and get a lot done. Because like 30-minute ones, that only leaves you 15 minutes once I'm in it, and it's just not long enough. An hour, I start to lose focus after 45 minutes. So that works really, really well for me. I can write without timers if it's one of those things like I'm at a highlights or it's just a dedicated day. I can just sit down and just write a lot of the times, but not having high focus, it is good to have something to focus on. As far as finding that right time of day, I really don't know. I used to always say late at night is my most creative time. I'm a night owl. But as you get older, you just kind of naturally become less of a night owl. And I'm not early. I could never wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write. My brain would not work correctly. It's barely working correctly now, and it's almost noon. I can write in the morning. Like if I wake up at like 8 or 9, I could write. Maybe even 7. But not 4. I could never.
Yeah, I've always said that I was a nighttime writer as well, but I think there's merit to to Kate's time. Again, I don't know if I could commit to the 4 o'clock in the morning, but I have noticed about me that one of the things that can be most distracting to me as a writer is outside influences and also the emotional toll of outside influences. So whether something is happening in the world or social media, or I've seen something sad, or somebody in my family is having a hard time, I take on a lot of that. And then that really influences how much creative energy I have left to get done what I need to get done. So there'll be days where I have amazing work days and I come home and I'm like, I'm so pumped. I'm going to have a great day. I'm going to get all this writing done. And then something's happened that I didn't know about, and my kind of creative energy is zapped immediately. So I think there's something to be said for writing in the morning before the world can kind of get at you. And I do want to start trying to implement that. But I do believe that one of the things that helps me be the most productive during my time, and I do, granted, allot myself a lot of time. I do not have children. I do not have a spouse. So I can kind of allot a lot of my free time on my weekend or my evenings to doing work on the books. One of the things that helps me the most is to have a list. I am a list maker. So if I know I have a list of things that I need to work on, whether it is a specific chapter edit, a specific character sheet that I need to work on, a scene that I need to revise, a scene that I need to write, if I have all of that ready to go, I know what I'm going to be working on during that specific writing session. It definitely helps me stay focused. And then I don't have to sit down and go, okay, where was I? What was I doing? I have all of those notes ready to go. And that's usually the way I start most writing sprints. And then again, I have a timer. There's a lot of distractions in my life. So if I know that I have a 45-minute timer on, the text can wait for 45 minutes or an email can wait for 45 minutes. But if I don't set a parameter on my writing session, then it feels like that text becomes immediate and I have to get to it now because who knows when I'm going to stop. So having the timer really does help me focus in on my task list that I already know I need to complete. And then I can wait and let the distractions be in the side until that 45 minutes is over. And I typically do 45 minutes of writing, 15 minutes off. So in the 15 minutes off, I can address the text messages, address the email, get up, grab some water, grab a snack, whatever it might be, and then sit back down, do another 45. And I'll usually do 2 of those back to back and then maybe take a half hour off and get up and do something else and then sit back down and work again. But knowing that I have a structure helps really let me ignore the phone for a little bit or the emails for a little bit. It helps me to like really maximize my time actively writing. The only thing that I think I could still perfect is probably writing earlier in the morning before outside stressors come in on me. I'm still debating that one.
One thing that you mentioned too that I do implement is the plan as well. Tend to plan 2 to 3 times per week, just on different days, just based on the week so far. So I know that, when I do write from 4 to 7, I found that depending on where I am in my process, if I'm freelance writing on top of my own books and the admin is just never ending, I will break up my time in the morning and say, for this hour, I'm doing this. For this 2 hours, I'm doing that. And that really helps, especially when I do it the night before. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm ready to go. And I just work on that thing that I need to work on. I put on that, and that in itself is a timer. So that hour, I work on that stuff. And when that hour ends, I move on to the next thing, even if I haven't completed it. So the plan definitely helps me.
Especially having different projects going on at the same time, to have a book that I'm editing and working with a team to publish, and then to have one that I'm querying and to have other ideas that I'm trying to flesh out to write next. Having time slots for each of those things is important, kind of prioritizing your list of tasks. And if you need to take this structure and apply it to cleaning your room or doing laundry or something like that, then that's fine. But if you're sitting down to actually write, if you have work to do on writing, then really maximizing that time for your craft is very important. And I try not to get too sidetracked there. when we do our productivity sprints on Sunday night. We specifically call them productivity sprints and not writing sprints because we want people to come and read and do whatever it is that they need to do to prep for the week. Productivity sprints are different to me than writing sprints. If I'm doing specific writing sprints and I am doing book related writing / editing, I'm not doing the admin stuff. I'm not doing any of that. It's just sit down and work on the book, and carving that time out is really important because I think that as a writer, now that we've discussed the capital W writer, then you've got to really carve out time for that craft and for whatever your project is.
Yeah, I agree. It's important to stay focused on what you're doing because it is easy for me to be like squirrel, and just get my attention taken away. But I also don't have kids and I don't have a spouse or anything. And I do try to not let the world get to me, but I'm high empathy. So that does happen sometimes. Like how much writing actually got done during the election? None, 0, because I was too focused on that. But, things like that. And sometimes I feel like at about 2:30 every day while I'm working, I start thinking about my book and I start being like, ooh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I'm going to get all this done. But then by the time it comes to where I can actually write, it's just, I'm exhausted and all these meetings at work and like, my mom and this and that. And it's just like, now I just want to like lay in bed and watch YouTube. And I push through most of the time and I do try to still work, but I wish that there was a way that I could take my lunch break at like 2:30 to 3:30 and just like maximize that time that I'm really interested in, like pumped. But of course, most of the time I have meetings during all those times, so I can't actually do it. So maybe that's my perfect little time. Maybe I need to start doing that on the weekend, be like 2:30 to 3:30. Boom.
Yeah, you may be able to like keep going after that once you started.
And I can also mention again the fact that I think we've mentioned it in other videos that we've done as well. But I like to sit down with 3 questions, which is, where are you in your work right now? Where are you going? So what's your next step? And is there anything that is stopping you? Anything that you're questioning? Any pain points? Anything that's kind of catching you up? And addressing all of those before you sit down to work is really important. So whether it's the night before, an hour before, if you know that time is coming, if you can run through those questions in your head, where are you in your book right now? Where are you going when you sit down for that sprint? And is there anything that you think you still need to kind of think over and work through that you're not sure about, so that when you sit down, you're fully prepared? And knowing all of that before you actually begin can be really helpful to just clear out the cobwebs and sit down. And then you're not starting as cold either. You kind of have a base for beginning your work for the day. I find that very helpful. I also know that some people use different apps. So the Forest app or other things that can shut off social media and kind of block other distractions. Like Kate said, I use music like almost exclusively to just kind of drown out other sounds and keep myself focused. So there's a ton of different ways that you can kind of hone in on what makes your time feel the most creative and special, and like delineate just time at a desk or time in a room from like writing time, whatever specifically makes it in your head a switch from this is where I also pay my bills and do this and do that to like, this is my time for writing. I encourage you to find it, whatever that thing is for you.
And there's 2 things I wanted to say based off of what you were talking about in terms of planning ahead. When you ask those 3 questions, when I first heard that, I absolutely love that focused attention on your story. When I usually end a writing session, I sort of do that in my own way. I will either, depending on my mood or where I am in the story, I'll leave myself a little cliffhanger. I use Scrivener. So I write notes on the side and I say where I want to be going in my next session. So when I wake up at 4 a.m. and my brain is not quite ready to work yet, I know exactly what I need to be doing. And in terms of tools, I've done this over the last year, is that, don't ask me how, but I know it's a way to do it. I have a PC that my Scrivener opens automatically when I turn my computer on. So it's that reminder that you need to start working. It's not, let me go to the internet first and do all these things. When Scrivener pops up, it's ready to work. And I have to be ready to work. And it's just like a nice reminder to have. And even having it pinned to that toolbar on your main screen, or if you're using a Mac on your desktop, that may help just as that instant reminder. We're sitting down, we're getting ready to work. Let's work.
Another thing that I wanted to say was that I realized recently was, before the pandemic, I was at work at an office and I worked at the office. I went home and then, writing, even though I do want to pursue it as a career right now, it is still technically like a hobby. And so when I would go home, it would be separate. Well, now a lot of people are working from home, including me. And I've set up I have this one long desk and like I have my work, station over there and then like my other little piece over here. And a lot of times if I'm sitting over there all day working, considering like it's the same desk and the same chair, I don't want to just like finish work and, an 8-9 hour shift and then sit over here and work as well. So then I try to like go and sit on the couch or sit in my bed, and those aren't always the best places either to work because it makes you want to like take a nap or go to sleep or whatever. So if you can separate and having like your workstation separate from like writing station, because have a different chair, have a different desk in a different room, something. And I know that's not feasible for a lot of people because, we don't have a ton of space, but just to have some sort of differentiation of like, that's work. I'm not sitting here to work. I'm sitting here to write, that's different. It's not the same kind of work. And I have so many days when I'm just like, I can't sit at this desk anymore today. I just can't do it. I can't do it. But then I go to the bed and I set up in the bed and then I'm like, now I just want to sleep because it's comfortable. And like
that has been hard, I think, with more people working at home. It's difficult to stay in the same place, looking at the same walls or view or desk, chair for that long. It can be difficult, but hopefully with spring here and nicer weather, maybe, taking a chair outside or, a little lap desk outside or, finding creative ways to, change up your location in a safe way so that you can still get that creative time in. I would love to know your own tips and tricks for carving out time and making it as productive as possible. So if you could, the question of the episode down below, if you want to answer it, is how do you distinguish your time writing? How do you make it as productive as possible? What's your tip or trick that you want to share with everybody? We would love to hear it in a comment down below. And as always, if you have any thoughts or questions that you would like us to address in a future episode, you can also leave that down below. I think that's going to be it for this one. Until the next episode, that is everything for the Writer's Hive. Be sure to check out Katlyn and Amber's links. Everything will be in the description box down below, as well as our question if you need a reminder. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Going. And did you hear that little burp in my throat?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
I'm leaving that in as a blooper at the end of this episode.
Good.
Should we do that? Should we put in bloopers at the end of the episodes?
Yeah.